Disney, Hollywood, fairy tale. The myth of the one, the perfect woman and the perfect man for you. Could not be further from the truth, unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, but I think the fellas know this. The myth of monogamy.
Why do you say the myth, my brother? What is monogamy, my bro?
Monogamy is a Western concept that says that one man has to spend his eternity with one woman.
No, I'm joking. I'm joking.
In genuine terms and context, I want you to understand, as a man, you have had lived experience, right? But for some reason, they're going to tell you that you're not allowed to think and feel the way that you do. That you're not allowed to have the desire for multiple spouses. And matter of fact, that it's wrong, even though Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already decreed what is right and what is wrong.
I know, but bro, like, of course you can get married more than once, but listen, bro, it's like you have to be so exact in like how you treat all the wives that it becomes like, no, but it's not even possible. It's not possible, you know what I mean? How can you treat all of them so equally, bro?
You do your best. You will never be able to be full, especially when it comes to love. Because the third ayah of An-Nisa, where Allah says, and marry twos and threes and fours. And if you fear you cannot be just to them, then just marry one. Obviously, if you can't even be just to one, then don't marry at all. But the continuation of that, at the end of An-Nisa, Allah says, in terms of love, emotion, right? You will never be able to be fully equal in your love, and it's okay.
Okay, but no, bro, that was probably more like back in the dating. That's a back in the dating, bro. That's
You
like
think polygyny was back in the day too?
no, because obviously the people go to and the
Actually not, bro.
no.
Not a lot of people. That's a very common misconception. Many people think that polygyny was a back in the day thing. And they use that to push forward a progressive liberal agenda, saying that today it doesn't make sense, bro. You know, it doesn't make sense. Unfortunately, for them, they have to realize that Islam is timeless. It's not time bound to a specific history, or obviously there's things with context, right? But the divine commandments from Allah, the permissibility of polygyny, is timeless, bro. And many of the contemporary scholars of Islam, wait till you hear this, bro. Their tafsir on the ayah, the third ayah of An-Nisa, is that we should be polygynous. Because Allah SWT says, and marry twos and threes and fours. If you fear that you cannot be just, then marry one. As in, if you can't, the default is not monogamy, bro. At least that's a valid opinion.
The default is 2 and 3 and 4 because that's what's mentioned first. And marry one is a caveat if you can't treat them fairly.
And in Jannah, every man is gonna have 2 wives and 72 hur al-ain. They don't want to hear this, bro, but there's beauty in numbers. Oh, now that all the sisters are gone.
Now listen, guys. Here's what I need to get through to you. And have you seen do you remember there was like a meme like that for a while? There was like, have you guys ever played Xbox and? Okay, guys, now the sisters are gone, and okay, now the sisters are really gone. And have you seen that meme?
I remember those.
Do you remember that?
Yep.
Yeah, that reminded me of that. But yeah.
Listen, I wanna first do a little bit of a disclaimer before we talk about polygyny. Before they get put on game. Let's start with the basics of polygyny. We want to start with base principles. We want to talk about liberalism. We want to talk about presentism, and we want to talk about what is naturally there in our fitrah. But before we even break that down, let's talk to sisters and some of the brothers that are kind of like, oh, polygyny, like, do you not love her? Are you going through something, right? Before we talk about that, let's enlighten them. Let's educate them. Why do they believe that monogamy is the norm? Before I give my take, what do you think, bro?
Oh, that's a Western standard, my bro. That's a new thing. Even amongst the Westerners, it's a new thing. Even amongst the Westerners, I mean, we say Westerners and liberal society, they're known for being very historically.
It's a promiscuous culture, isn't it?
Promiscuous culture, yeah. So like, I mean, they may not have multiple wives, but they're very well known for being
How so?
What do you mean?
You're talking about like the kings and the rulers.
I mean, look at even the mafia, bro. Look at the mafia people. Extreme. I don't know why I bring out the mafia, but the Italians, for example, the Italian mafia, they'd have their missus, they have their wife, and there's actually a name for it, but they'd have a mistress as well, upon which that they're looking after, they're paying for, and things like that as well. But she wouldn't have the same kind of like title as wife, if that makes sense.
SubhanAllah.
Like I think even if you look at like Goodfellas and old like mafia movies, they have their wife and then they have their mistress, you know, like and in general, like, you know, like it or not, men are gonna be polygynous. You know, they have desire for numerous women. That's why, you know, in Jannah was one of the first things a guy is told, you're gonna get begal. You know, you're gonna get the Khuralain, you know? So that's because that's just in our fitra. That's the way we're created, you know? And in saying that, you mentioned if you can't treat them fairly, only have one. And if you do have one, there's no excuse for cheating. There's no excuse for extramarital relationships so, you know, you still have to be a good, honorable man. You still have to lower your gaze. And if you're one of these people that fit into the category of one, there's no excuse. You still have to be loyal to your one wife. Yeah. So,
No.
Pardon?
No, so you can have multiple wives, right?
I'm saying if you're in a situation where you can only have one wife, perhaps loyalty is the wrong word. Perhaps
you mean not exclusivity. Faithful, devotion, all that.
No,
yes.
I mean, if you're going to have one wife and you fit into the category of men who are only going to stick to one and you'll have one wife, there's no excuse for you to have a relationship.
What do you mean?
I'm talking about specifically.
Yeah, but what do you mean category of those that will only have one?
Well, in the Quran, it says marry 2 or 3 or 4 unless you can't.
If you can't. Let's say you can't afford.
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Right.
If you have one wife
right.
and you're not getting married a second time or third time
because
or fourth
haram
time.
for you. Yes.
Because it's haram for you, because you can't, because
right.
you think it's an unwise decision to do so in your situation, then yeah, you can't.
I thought you were talking about it because he accepted a polygyny contract.
Oh,
on the nikah, which we'll get into. A lot of brothers, unfortunately, are doing that.
Nah, I joked.
But I get exactly what you mean, man. It's we can't do that at all. Even because faithfulness, loyalty, bro. Let's say you have 4, you can't have a 5th one, right?
No.
So I want to break this down by giving a little history of womanism to add on to what you said about Western ideals.
Cool.
Womanism is a very new thing too. It's a new thing. It hasn't been tried and tested yet. It's very new. It's novel. But what does womanism say at its core? That men and women are what?
Equal.
Biggest buzzword, right? Equal,
yep.
right? They will say that everything that women feel, we feel too. So essentially, the reason a lot of womanists and modern women have an issue with understanding why we have desires is because they bought the BS of womanism, telling them that everything that you feel, we feel too. As in everything a woman feels, men feel too. A woman, once she finds a high-value man, top guy, fitness, finances, masculinity, he's that guy, Allahumma barik, he's on his deen, right? He's deen and deenin, not just on his deen, he's deen and deenin. They cannot fathom, once they've formed an attachment and bond to him, they cannot fathom being promiscuous with other men.
Yes.
Therefore, they project that onto us. So they think that if she's on her best behavior, she's cooking, she's cleaning, she's feminine, she's nurturing, she's warm, she's smiling all the time, simple girl, bro. She thinks, why would he want another woman?
They take it personal, and they can't understand why a man can love you, how a man can love you, but also love another woman, or even just desire another woman. Even if you say you love her, but then you love your wife, but then you have a desire for other women as well. You know, that's just part of the male nature.
And who were the best mothers of the ummah? You know, Aisha radiallahu anha, and other wives of the Prophet. They got jealous too.
Of course, yeah.
Right? A lot of women say, polygyny is not for me, I'm not going to get jealous. I think if as a woman, you're not jealous of your husband marrying other wives or wanting to marry other prospects, there's something wrong with you.
No, it's a question mark if you even love him. Maybe there's nothing wrong with you. Maybe you just don't love the guy. You know, maybe you just don't care about the guy. You know,
and then she'll probably be interested in him more.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
But this being said, let's talk about a lot of the other, not just womanists, right? But this womanism, this liberalism has deeply embedded the ummah, bro, to the point where there's a taboo amongst Muslims. If you say you want to marry a second wife, all of a sudden, you know, you're up against the whole mob, 2 billion-ish, almost, right? That just they've accepted it. You know how many sisters I know that said, I understand polygyny is from the Quran, from Allah, but it's not from me. They've said that, bro. What do you think they mean by that?
Well, yeah, they don't want their husband to get another wife. You know what I mean? That's what they mean by that. You know what I mean? I mean, at the end of the day, in Islam, we have responsibilities that we don't want to necessarily fulfill, or that aren't necessarily appealing to fulfill. There's many things in Islam that men have to do, you know what I mean, that aren't necessarily the easiest or most appealing. I'm sure there's a lot of men out there that want to take a day off and not work and not this and
Mental
not that.
health day.
Yeah, mental health day and whatnot. Don't get me wrong, take care of your mental health, boys. It is a real thing. The real thing. No, not disregarding that at all. But ultimately, as a Muslim man, we're required to be the providers and protectors. You know, that there's no way around that. You know, somebody breaks into your home and you have to protect your home. As a Muslim man, that's mandatory upon you now. You know, you have to do that. You have to protect your wife and kids. You can't, you know, nudge your missus along and say, "You go, mate. I'm scared. You go check first." You know what I mean? So men may not necessarily want to do that. Of course, I want to do that. That's the role I want to play. But you know, there's many things in Islam that aren't easy for men. Matter of fact, I'd say men have a lot of responsibility on their shoulders to lead and to do lots of things.
I would even say for sisters, hijab is not easy.
Yeah, hijab is not
But
easy.
many of them have to do it.
Yeah.
At least the ones that want to come closer to Allah, right? For His sake alone.
Of course.
So polygyny, accepting is not easy. It's not supposed to be easy. That's the reality.
100%.
And I want you to touch on that because you mentioned this a few episodes ago, you know, and many viewers might just be joining this as their first episode, but you were talking about it's not supposed to be lovely all the time. You're not supposed to enjoy everything. You're not supposed to be happy all the time.
Well, yeah, mankind was created into hardship. This life isn't supposed to be an easy life. It's a life of patience. It's a life of calling others to good, and it's a life of doing good deeds and, you know, obeying Allah and obeying His messenger. You know, if you're a Muslim, that's what you subscribe to. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You know, that's what you subscribe to, and you know, if you don't subscribe to that, life is gonna be hard anyway. There's no way around it. You know what I mean? Like, there's nobody. I've never met somebody I've never seen somebody get to their bed and then say, "Oh, that wasn't too hard." You know, life is supposed to come with ups and downs, tragedies, hardships, good times, bad times, and you know, that's just the way the cookie crumbles. That's just the way life goes.
So let's take it back a little bit, not too much, into the average man and woman today, especially in culture.
Yes.
We're dealing with a lot, bro. Society doesn't like polygyny, but they're promoting zina, and you got your work wife, texting buddy, you got the, you know, I didn't even know work wife, work husband was a thing. Like, people will openly say, "That's my work husband, that's my work wife," and they're happily married.
That's
right?
a madness.
It's a mad thing, bro.
Yeah, that's normal, huh? That's in today's society. That's a bit of giggling, huh?
I know,
you know?
sisters that will proclaim, and they made TikToks, right? They'll say, "I would love my husband to cheat on me before he gets a second wife." A'udhu billah.
No, like I said, Ali Dawah. I said this in the Dali Hokikichu podcast. Ali Dawah put it quite well. I'm pretty sure it was him. He said that some sisters would rather that you break the law of Allah than break the law of them. And when he said it like that, to be honest with you, that's kind of put it all into a picture for me, you know.
You got society against you. You got family against you. You got the sisters against you, right? So what is a man to do? I'll tell you what. Have sabr, make dua to Allah, and establish this early on. If that's something you want to do, cool. But a lot of men don't know. You know, for example, I have one wife, right? Everyone starts out with one wife. If you are not opposed to polygyny, make sure you are making that known from day one. Don't sign no nikah contract clause saying that you're not going to have multiple wives if that's something you want to do, or you're unsure. If you're absolutely sure, you better uphold that, right?
Yeah.
But if you're not sure, don't sign no contract saying that, bro, because many times, especially for the unmarried brothers, they think, "Oh my God, you know, just the idea of one wife, amazing, Jannah on earth." They do it and they realize, you know what? I wish I didn't do that. And now it's too late. Now it's too late. So
and the consistent for it. Yeah, you're damn right. Yeah. It's too late, baby boy. You signed the contract. Yeah. You gotta uphold that, you know.
but to not even get to that is the recommendation if you're not gonna do that. Now, let's talk about this. We talked about why sisters have an issue with it, right?
I just want to say one thing on what you said just there first, bro. You said one thing I want to add first is make sure when you do have one wife, yeah, like you said, you start with, make sure you're treating her right first. You know, make sure that you're upholding all of her rights first.
Absolutely.
A lot of guys out there are getting married. They have one wife. They don't look after their one wife properly.
As in, if you're doing 50-50 with your wife, it might even be haram for you to get a second wife, because you're not even being able to afford, unless she forsakes her right and says, "You know what, we'll do 50-50, you can, sure." But if your wife is only working because you don't have your money up, what are you doing getting a second wife?
Yeah, if this is a 50-50 thing, you don't really have, there's no room for you to get a second wife. You kind of have to, like, before you can go get a second wife, in my opinion, this is my opinion, right? Before you go get a second wife as a man, right? If you're not upholding your wife's rights to begin with to the highest of levels, you're kind of taking the mickey a bit, mate. You know what I mean? You're taking the mickey because it's like you have to be paying for her. You have to be covering all her costs. You have to be kind to her, gentle with her, respectful to her, making sure that she's living life on, as a Muslim wife should be. You know what I mean? Then, you want to open the door to second wife, third wife, fourth wife. Now Fayad's going to take it away. Now we can continue the conversation. But I wanted to throw that out there. Before you have a second wife, remember, Halal Bros is all about trying to think about both sides of this argument, both sides of this kind of picture. A lot of sisters aren't being treated right, and that needs to be acknowledged first and foremost, and that needs to be fixed before you can think about a second and third wife.
Anyway, no, I'm just playing. All the sisters definitely, now that their heart is a little bit more at ease, let's educate them now. And the brothers, obviously, because many brothers, unfortunately, don't know the nuances of it.
Yeah.
Islam didn't start polygyny. I know a lot of people will be like, what? What are you talking about? Only Muslims. Listen, mankind has been polygynous, and I would even argue societies since the dawn of human history have been promiscuous. You have polygyny, which is one man with multiple women. You'll have in some kuffar tribes in Africa, they do that too. You'll have polyandry, which is one woman with multiple men. Kind of gross if you think about it, right? You have polyamory, right? Which is just multiple men with multiple women, bro. It's just like a whole group intimacy session going on.
I'm going to throw one thing out there, mate. In the Western society today, if you were to say that you were in a relationship with like a piano and a relationship with many other different... An animal, and you had another wife and a husband and another husband and a wife, we just add up these numbers and we get as creative as we want. You might actually get the green light in Western society, mate. But really progressive, really nice, really out there. Without, I don't really kind of want to go into too much into that topic much more.
That was oddly specific, though.
Listen, you go down that road and you have that kind of a polyamorous relationship. Is that right? When a woman has multiple husbands?
No, polyandrous.
Polyandrous. Okay, easy mode. Yeah, if you have a polyandrous relationship in the West society, green light, no problem, mate. Yeah, sure. Yeah, listen, you go, girl. Everybody has the freedom to do what they want, do everything they like, and be happy. But if you flip it around and the man has multiple wives in the Western world, it's like, misogynist, and it's horrible.
And the beauty of it, the truth behind it, bro, is Islam didn't start polygyny.
No.
If you look at the Vedas, the scriptures for the Hindus, if you look at other religions of people of the book, Christianity, Judaism, Greek and Roman history, men always had multiple women.
Yep.
Islam is the first religion, and I challenge anybody watching to give me this. Otherwise, the Quran was the first book revealed from Allah, the first religious scripture, period, right? To actually limit the number of multiple partners we can have up to 4. The very first one ever.
Yep.
So no, Islam didn't start this.
100%.
We need to understand this. And now, in terms of polygyny, in terms of why we want it, I want to now ask the audience a little bit, anybody watching, what is the alternative? If we're not going to have polygyny, let's talk about polyandry. As a man, bro, are you currently married?
I'm not married, no.
Okay, Allah mabarak. Do you have kids?
No kids.
Do you want kids?
I love kids.
Inshallah.
Inshallah.
How many kids do you want? A little bit of few, or if Allah blesses you, many?
If I'm able to, if I am able to afford it, I'd love to have
may Allah grant you that.
Many, loads.
Now think about this. If you want multiple kids, do you realize how taxing it is on one woman to go through pregnancy and then labor and then, just raising and nurturing that kid?
Of course.
Feeding and all that. It's time intensive.
Yeah.
Imagine putting one woman through having all of your babies. Doable, right? Now imagine her doing that to 3 other next men.
What the?
4 men with 1 woman. Let's say the average man just wants 2-3 kids.
Yeah.
It's not feasible, number 1. Number 2, assurance of paternity. How can a woman with multiple partners, husbands, boyfriends, guarantee who is the father? So obviously today, we have paternity tests and all this nonsense. But you're saying that in the West, in some places in the world, they don't have that, right? And as men, we need to take accountability, right? It's all about, oh, you know, dads and they don't pay child support and all this. Well, how are we going to know that if there's multiple ones? It doesn't make sense, right? So if you have multiple men, no one's going to know who the father is. And men, by instinct, we want to know that it's our child to, number one, give them inheritance.
Of course.
Islam came to ensure that we get proper inheritance, not that anyone, you know, we have our rights. That's how it is, bro. So simply put, if it was the other way around, it wouldn't make sense practically. It wouldn't make sense in terms of assurance of paternity. And just look at loyalty, bro. As a man, I know many stories, bro. There was a quadruple. There was, it's like not a couple, not a throuple. There were 4 men all dating the same girl. It was an open polyandrous thing. It was in, I believe, America or Europe, right? One of the days, husband A was out with the woman. Husband A impregnated the wife. And she gave birth to a child. This is an actual news story. You know, he was out with the missus, and one of the co-husbands was babysitting their child, their son. It was a baby boy, I believe he was 3 weeks old. If you would believe, when they came home, they left it with another husband, a co-husband. Baby was gone, bro.
What?
Gone. I'm talking the baby was... They found like, it's crazy, bro. I don't even want to get into that, bro. Why? I'm going to say this again, bro. As men, we have ghira, protective jealousy over our women folk. This is not something to mess around with. It's apprehensible at the most, or I would even say at the very least, what happened to this innocent baby.
This is real, yeah?
This is real. However, that man that did that to the next man's, or should I say the co-husband's child with his wife, do you think he felt as much love for that as he would have if it was his real son or daughter? No, this is just reality. Simply put, I can't claim without a shadow of a doubt if this is Islamic tradition, but I can at least say Islamic culture. When there's a divorce, if there's a divorce, Allah forbid, right? But it's permissible. Like if there's no other way, if there's a divorce, the kids, once the woman, the single mom, the divorcee, once she is going to go marry the next man, the kids go with their original father. Because the next man's not going to look at them like that, bro. How many people do we know? How many men do we know in society? There's so many statistics. They on their stepdaughters or stepsons, or they don't take care of them. They're to them. They do many horrible things to them that I don't even want to get into. I've
spoken to some people in the local council in the UK and people who work within like these kinds of things. Yeah, I was shocked to hear how much these types of crazy things happen.
But I know a lot of women, bro. I'm sure you know with your experience. You know, you were raised by 3 women, right?
Yeah.
Allah mabarak, may Allah bless all of them. They're very nurturing. They're very warm. So if for any reason you have a child and you marry a woman, yeah, it's not her child, but she's more likely to be warm with them. At the very least, I don't think you'll come home and find...
No.
I really don't think so, bro.
No.
Inshallah. And as men, it's inshallah, it's not the case, right? But ghayra has to be understood. It has to be at least acknowledged at the very least. Otherwise, we can't get anywhere in this conversation. Now, another thing is, as men and as women, we have to realize how much of a toll things take spiritually and psychologically. As a man, we can simultaneously have oxytocin with multiple partners. We can have love with them. It's very normal. And I know a lot of women won't understand this, and a lot of women might not even like this. As a Muslim man, if I love you, if I'm caring for you, if I'm upholding all of your rights over me in a marital setting, and I go and I marry another girl tomorrow, let's say I'm with a Fatima and tomorrow I want to be with Hafsa, it doesn't mean I don't love Fatima. Matter of fact, it means that I love Fatima if I'm actually looking out for her and not sleeping around, being promiscuous. Because zina, or I should say sexual immorality, is not defined by the way that society moves. It's defined by Quran and Sunnah. And Allah has already said that polygyny is not zina.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
That's it, folks. I'm glad. Inshallah, we'll see you guys next week. Go get your second wives. No, I'm just playing. So based on all this, I want you to understand, just it doesn't make sense, bro, for a lot of society, majority of society, to expect us to be monogamous if it's something that's not in us. And many women, unfortunately, they've kind of bought the proverbial modernity Kool-Aid, bro. They've drank it, and now they think that if a man wants this, there's something wrong with me and this. Sweetheart, it's not about you. It has nothing to do with you. I should look at the camera, not you, bro. Sweetheart, there's nothing wrong with you. You're normal. As my brother over here just said, you might even just love your husband, God forbid, right? And that's probably why you feel some type of way, and it's normal. What are you gonna do now? Would you rather he has these desires and does sexual immorality and causes disease and corruption in the world, or keep everything, take accountability for them too, and inshallah everything's, and Allah gives him barakah? Think about it like this: one of the problems in the ummah today, as the Prophet ﷺ prophesies, is that we're high in number but very few in power. As he mentioned, it will be like the foam of the sea. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So our problem isn't the progeny, it's quality, right? But why don't we get the quality and quantity up? Why don't we have more kids? Right? 100%. The average Muslimah today, after she follows her dad's desires of her becoming a cardiologist in her 30s, will finally maybe get married at late 30s. And at 40, she'll be like, oh, time to have kids now. And then they come back from the genetic counseling and they realize there's going to be issues with that. This is reality, bro.
Yeah.
This is the cold reality they don't want to accept. And for her, she's going to realize, okay, maybe with IVF, she could have one child who will completely be at risk statistically, right?
Yeah.
And they could all have been prevented if they just started earlier.
Yeah. 100%. And not only that, bro, I do, we're talking a lot about like the merit of polygyny and having multiple wives, right? And why it's okay and why it should be done, all these types of things. And I feel like that's a kind of horse at this point between podcast bros.
Go into that.
Well, every podcast bro is kind of talking about that right now, isn't it? You know, I actually really liked Hakikuchu's take on this in our podcast with him, where he said he doesn't actually recommend polygyny for everyone, and it's not always the right thing to do. I think it's
absolutely
it's very over glamorized. Yeah, the idea of having multiple wives is very over glamorized, and it's the reality of the situation isn't necessarily very glamorous.
Go into that, bro, because there's a misconception that the more masculine you are, the more wives you have, and that cannot be further from the truth, bro.
100%. And listen, look, like the whole point of marriage is that you're essentially serving a lady. You know, you're taking care of her, you're providing for her, etc. Well, now, if let's just say you've got the first one done right, you're covering all her bills, you're covering all her costs, you're doing right by her. Well, now if by getting a second wife, you're actually picking up another responsibility. You know, so you have to be make sure that you're well positioned to be able to fulfill that responsibility for multiple wives if you are going to do that. You know, it's not as simple as, and unfortunately in the West right now, we live in a very expensive world. Most sisters are working, you know, so if you
they have to.
Because they have
Yes,
to.
genuinely.
Because they genuinely have to. Because
as much as they say career woman, no, most of them don't have a choice, bro.
London rent prices are crazy, bro. You know what I mean? You want to stay away from riba, you know, and you want to rent. London rent prices right now are crazy. If you live in New York, crazy. LA, San Fran, the major cities, crazy. You know? So if for me to right now go to a sister who's working and paying half the bills and saying, yeah, your husband should go get a second wife, mate, she told me to do one, and rightfully so, to be honest with you, mate. You know, so again, it's an over glamorized concept that isn't necessarily as easy to fulfill, to pull off. In the same breath, you know, Ali Dawah's been pushing this a lot, or was pushing this quite a bit for a while. It has been demonized, and I really appreciate that you took some time out to kind of remove some of that stigma and talk about why there shouldn't be a stigma, and there shouldn't be a stigma around it. But before we get to that point, you know, we live in a place, right? We live in a society right now in London and New York and these kind of major cities in the West where, women are quite frustrated with the men because they're not doing their part really. You know what I mean? They're not really doing their part. And listen, if you found a situation where you've communicated with a sister and you said, listen, we're going to go 50-50, you're working a halal job, I'm working now, and you've done that before marriage and she's accepted that and you're both, you know, acknowledging that this life ain't as simple as we're making it out to be, you know, and sometimes nowadays both people need to work, then, you know, God bless you, you know what I mean? But then, like, before you retire your missus, you can't go get a second wife. It doesn't make any sense, you know. And
if your parents are struggling, bro, I'm talking legitly struggling.
yeah,
And your family's struggling, come on, bro. You got bigger priorities than just spreading your seed with more halal.
100%. Your mind should be focused on work and building so that you can retire your wife, so that maybe your parents are going to your dad is probably going to keep working maybe, but but you can, if he's struggling, you can support, And the other thing I'll throw out there as well, and like I said, Hakikachu put it quite well, is listen, sometimes it's an unwise decision to get a second wife. It's not a plaything. It's not a toy. It's not a women aren't toys for you to go collect them. You know what I mean? As trophy wives or whatever like that. Let's say you have 4 or 5 kids with your wife. You need to. Muhammad Hubla says this. He says halal and haram is child's play.
He said halal haram is kindergarten language.
It's kindergarten language.
The right way is, what halal am I going to leave for a better halal? That's
exactly. And it's about using wisdom in your choices. If you're out with the man them every night, you're not going home to your missus unless you want, to spend time with your missus. And
nothing wrong going on with the man them.
Nothing wrong
with
going on.
But if you're not fulfilling your obligations,
exactly,
you got work to do, bro.
You got work to do. And also, you need to think to yourself, what is the impact of me taking a second wife right now? Is everything going to get crazy? Can my family handle that right now?
Yeah.
And it's a lot more intricacies than simply get a second wife, get a third wife, and have some fun, mate. No, it's not as simple as that.
So therefore you have to be okay with it. No. Especially, I don't recommend any brother watching this video to get a second wife if your wife is currently pregnant.
Yeah, it's a good shot.
That's extreme. Like, bro, you could just imagine how heartbroken they're gonna be. They're carrying your seed. I'm not saying it's not permissible, right? I'm just saying, come on.
Is it wise?
Is it wise? Yeah.
The question is it wise?
It's not always about halal haram.
Yeah.
Like, just because it's halal doesn't mean you have to do it.
Yeah.
You get what I mean?
100%. And
halal is in Islam, it's permissible. Mubah. Mubah means permissible.
Yeah. Like
permissible is not necessarily encouraged.
Yeah. I know we said it's the default
according to an opinion.
Yeah. But in the same breath, given the life today, where you're living, what you can afford, what you can't afford, these are the other factors that come into play. Now, I know a lot of there's the kind of common thing about, it's like memes, right? Where sisters are in Dubai and they're married to a rich guy and they're like, oh, but he's got other wives. And they're like, so what? The pink G-Wagon, and she don't care because she's in a pink G-Wagon, her Chanel, and she got all her girls and they're having a great old time and she's maintaining her chastity and everything like that. Husband has a couple other wives. She's cool with that. You know what I mean? Maybe that's the guy who should be getting multiple wives, who can provide a certain standard of lifestyle to their wives. Maybe not a G-Wagon per se. I'm using extreme as an example, but you've covered the basis essentially, And so there are scenarios where, maybe a sister will be easier with it.
This is also to say that not every sister will be easier with it, because some sisters would rather prefer quality time from their husband and less money than more money in a lavish lifestyle and sharing him. This is just the reality.
Very good point. Very, very good point. I've actually heard that as well. Now you mentioned a very good point. Some sisters would prefer just, they'd actually say, listen, don't get too rich. Because if you get too rich, don't get too famous, don't get too rich, because then you're going to have, too many options to get started in second and third wives, and, you made a good point there where you mentioned perhaps it's not a wise idea to get married to a second wife while your wife is pregnant. Perhaps in some scenarios it is, but I can imagine for the most part it's probably not the best idea. When other times do you think that it wouldn't be a good idea for a husband to get married to a second wife? Because I would imagine also another thing that came in my head: you're newly married. 1 year in, 2 years in. And, you're taking care of a sister you're married to.
I got you.
Early stages. I would also say it's probably not very wise in that scenario either, to me, to be honest,
There's another time that I would highly recommend and advocate for brothers to consider not getting a second wife or another wife. Is going to be during iddah. If Allah forbid they're going through a divorce, and this is the 90 days or 3 or 4 menstrual cycles, right, that you're waiting to make sure that, again, assurance of paternity, right?
Yeah.
Right? I would highly recommend anyone in iddah right now to really think twice. I'm not going to say it's don't do it because it's permissible. Think twice before you get a second wife. There's a lot of emotions there. There's a lot of charge,
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to rush to conclusions. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Talaq, do not assume and do not jump to conclusions, or do not assume end all be all, because Allah can bring about a new situation from places you can't even imagine.
Yeah.
So you might be thinking, charged with emotion. Oh, she did this. She said this. How could this? How could that? And all of a sudden you're like, okay, let me just get some new halal energy. And all of a sudden, had to watch myself there. All of a sudden, you're forgetting that perhaps you had something to do with that disagreement. And Iddah should be a time of reflection. It should be a time of sometimes reconciliation. Not just when the going gets tough, cool. So sisters need to understand that if we do get a second wife, it's not always because something's happening. Sometimes we just want a second wife. But if something is happening, don't be the guy to just, when the going gets tough, you walk. Think of the typical standard media portrayed deadbeat dad that he went out to get milk one day and never came home. Then he has another family next door in the neighborhood.
Not make no sense.
Yeah, not make no sense, bro. Don't do that. The best thing that a man can do is water his own garden.
100%.
Which is why how many times, bro, do we realize, oh, you know what? My wife doesn't look at me the same as she used to. My wife doesn't talk to me in the same way that she used to.
Yeah.
And therefore, I need another wife who's going to respect me. When's the last time you actually looked at your wife the way you used to? When's the last time you actually watered your own garden? When is the last time you actually gamed up and rizzed up your wife?
Very good point.
How easy is it to get that revenge bod, bro? When you're done with a breakup and divorce and now you're in the gym finally.
So you're saying, let's say you're in a situation where you've been married for a while and the relationship's a little bit stale. The go-to isn't necessarily to, oh, well, things are getting a bit boring. I'm fulfilling her rights, but we're not as excited anymore. Then the go-to is not just say, oh, get a second wife and I can have fun that way.
That's on you, bro. That's on you because you're not watering your garden. How many brothers get out of marriages and breakups finally, and all of a sudden now they're in the gym. Now they're getting their money up. Now they're getting their riz up. Now they're expanding their social network. Now they're going really hard on their purpose. But they were never doing that when they were with that woman. I doubt if they ever loved them in the first place. I can't say that. But if you really did, you'd want to look out for them. So it's that paradox of sometimes listening to a woman's advice. Sometimes my wife says, oh no, don't go work. Don't go to the gym.
Yep.
Don't do this. Stay home with me and all this. What she doesn't realize is if I listen to this advice and I actually stay and cave as a man, then perhaps it'll make her happy short term. Even though I beg to differ, I think she might lose a little bit of respect. But let's say I cave in. It might make her happy today. But that small action that's going to compound over time, to me not going to the gym every time she wants to spend more time with me, to not working extra hours, if we're broke now over time, or I'm not in a shape to take care of her, there's going to be dangers long term. But to her, it's just feelings. It's like in the moment, I just want to be with my man and this and that. So men need to understand, number one, above all else, that as David Goggins said, bro, stay hard. There's going to be times where you don't want to be, going to the gym. And it's not going to help you when your wife is just, stay in bed, do this, do that. It's a fitna, bro. It's a fitna, but it's better to deal with the fitna of leaving her short term. If you really love her because you want to give her that lifestyle, take care of her, make sure the family's good, kids are taken care of and safe and homeschooled and, picket fenced in the idealistic scenario that we all dream of, inshallah, then it is to just say yes and be home. How many brothers do we know of that they actually listened, they started working less, they stayed home more, gave more time, and their wives resented them, bro?
100%, bro. 100%.
Absolutely.
So, essentially, like David Goggins said, stay hard.
Stay hard.
In more way than one. No, I'm joking. Bad joke. Okay.
And this brings you to a sponsorship of a natural male enhancement pill.
Tallegit.
Shilajit.
Shilajit.
Not Tallegit.
Is it Shilajit? Yeah?
Shilajit.
Shilajit.
Yes.
Well, all the podcast bros be promoting that now.
All the podcast bros got the same Shilajit, bro. They're going to say, it's the same Shilajit. They say it in a nice, rizzy voice. And then they're going to say, don't buy if you're not married. It's always the same caption, bro. And may Allah bless them, get your bread up, But for me, I don't want to take no thing that hasn't been studied long term, number one.
I think Shilajit is natural though, right? It's like
but it's still not studied long term.
Is it not being studied long term?
No, bro. No? Yeah, it's like that saying, bro. You ever watch Breaking Bad?
Yeah, I watched Breaking Bad.
There was a joke about Breaking Bad. Someone was like, I only take natural substances like this and that, and I'm not gonna name any of these names now, but and then he mentioned a very like synthetic powdery white substance, and he's like, as one of the natural things, he's like, that's not natural. He's like, it is natural. It occurs naturally in my cousin Rico's basement.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like all these things. Sure, Shilajit compared to all of these things is natural, right? But now here's the issue. Many of said podcast bros have Alamabatic exposed the reality that China is synthetically making Shilajit.
What?
And they're selling it for $1 per can. So Shilajit, maybe you know this, maybe you don't, but it's a little bit pricier. It's a premium testosterone blend supplement, right? You'll see China, obviously, like clockwork. You want to buy a jumper, you want to buy anything, you go on AliExpress. It's obviously like next to pennies, right, compared to the real deal.
Yeah.
So similarly, you can get Shilajit for $1. It's very cheap, but it's synthetic. It's man-made. They chemically are making Shilajit. I don't think, and now here's the best part. When you buy Shilajit online, how are you going to know that it's not synthetically synthesized, that it's actually the real deal? And even if it is the real deal, why do you want that? Because there's so many ways you can boost your testosterone. Obviously, we'll talk about them in a separate podcast. And I think marriage will help you with that, right? But generally, I don't think, sure, a lot of men have low T, but there's a lot that you can do naturally, truly, with gym, sleep, exercise, with your wife or wives, diet, and sunlight. You're set, bro. You don't need no Shilajit. You don't need a second wife. You don't need a third wife. Now, this reminds me of, as a podcast, bro, one of the things that I got canceled for a few months ago. I made an Instagram reel. In the Instagram reel, I cited a study. So the study basically said that as men, when we have one wife, over time, we have what's known as a physiological adaptation to her. There is an depletion. So when you get excited looking at your wife, right? When you get enticed, I should say, looking at your wife, you perform the natural obligation with your wife. After that, over time, there's a desensitization to that, right? So the refractory period, the time that it takes you to recoup after you release, gets longer and longer over time. I.e., you get more used to your wife.
Okay.
It takes you longer to get aroused again, and every time over time, the maximally will plateau. It'll decrease a bit, as in your maximum level that you can be turned on by your wife will go down. This is what these studies proved.
Is it Western studies? Or?
These are Western studies, but they're based on human beings, which will also be the same with Eastern people.
If the Westerners said it, mate, it must be right.
It must be right? All they're saying is there's an association between monogamy and lowering your testosterone over time and building more of a desensitization to your wife. And then they said that the second a new mate, a new female is placed, and you are now interacting with her, the skyrockets, the testosterone skyrockets, and all of a sudden the refractory period is null. It's negligible.
For both wives?
For both wives. Meaning, if a man is with girl A,
and he's got used to girl A.
And he just finished.
Okay.
With girl A, for him to recoup and get ready again to engage in with her, is going to be several minutes to several hours, and depending on certain demographics of men that are 50 or 60 years old, it can be certain days for the refractory period. I know me and you are like, bro, days, I'm good to go right away. Well, you were young, Alamabatic, right? But Habibi, not many men are, right? Several days. But for these same men, the second you place girl B, they're good to go right away. And then after that, the refractory period for girl A now is shorter too. It's faster.
Shorter as well, okay.
So they noticed that with polygyny, there is a boost in your testosterone, a boost in how quickly you overcome the refractory period, and you are more sensitized now. Not desensitized, more easily aroused.
Wow.
All I did was mention this. Bro, the sisters came for me like crazy. All I did was mention this correlation. Oh, Fayed Fit is saying to get another wife to boost your testosterone. Fayed Fit saying if you have low T, then don't be loyal to your missus. Get a second wife, get a third wife, get a fourth wife. That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is Allah has made polygyny permissible.
There's wisdom in what Allah
If you can do it, do it. And a benefit too is you get higher testosterone. Boom. I'm not saying to get a second wife because you have low testosterone. I'm not saying that either. But all I did was mention that correlation. Sisters couldn't have it, bro. They were going crazy. And unfortunately, man, this is the reality that we live in. And right away, they were like, oh, but, you also have to mention that he has to take care of it. Of course, sis. Ukhti, that's a guarantee. That's a default.
Of course.
Why is it always like you just mentioned polygyny? Oh yeah, but they're just foaming at the mouth. But he has to take it. Of course, sis. No one's saying he doesn't.
We started that podcast in saying that. Yeah. So
it's like you say, oh, sisters, women should obey their husband. Yeah, but he has to be a man worth obeying. Of course, if he's not a man worth obeying, scholars have said that if your husband is not upholding your rights, he's not taking care of you financially, he's taking away your rights, you don't have to obey him anymore until he does.
Interesting. Yeah, I want to segue into something else, my brother. You said
but just to end this note,
okay,
we need to stop this culture of devil's advocate just for the sake of being disagreeable.
Oh yeah, that's just the whataboutism. I can't lie.
Yeah,
Sisters gonna run that
like
game.
Just
like
accept
crazy.
things.
Yeah.
And accept that the devil's advocate, the hypotheticals, we're already taking these nuances into account.
Yeah.
It doesn't always have to be mentioned just to like, just for the sake of making a point. You get me?
Of course.
Unless I'm crazy, bro. Feel free to disagree.
I agree with you. That's why we started this podcast by saying, listen, first things first, you need to make sure you're taking care of your wife. First things first, you need to be watering your garden. You know, you can't just be like, oh, things are getting boring, I'm just going to go get a second wife. Mate, things are getting boring as second wife as well, mate. You know, listen, make sure you're putting in effort into your relationship. Take your missus out.
Water your garden.
Water your garden. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Find out what your missus likes, what she likes to do, and the activities she likes to do, and make some effort to do those activities with her.
And one quick thing I want to add, bro, to anybody that's not married too, if things are getting a little bit stale with your marriage, spending time apart is one of the best, easiest, cheapest, it's free, hacks that you could do to rebuild that connection and attraction again.
Wow.
Trust me on it. To spend. Listen, the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, bro, sometimes they were at battle. They didn't come back for days, weeks, bro. Think about that. It's real out here. And you're with your wife. The last time you spent without your wife, not sleeping in the same bed at night, was a year ago, 2 years ago. I'm not saying now just leave her all the time, but I'm saying don't be afraid to spend time apart. A lot of couples, they kind of glorify this Muslim TikTok influencer couple lifestyle. They go to Walmart together, they go to Sam's Club together, they go to the park together, and it's nice, of course. Go on dates.
A lot of that is an act, though, mate.
Of course,
yeah.
I would say all of it is an act, but
Yeah.
to spend 24/7 like this, I think genuinely as a man, do you not have work? Oh, but my missus likes me to work in the room with her. Yeah, I'm sure she'll say that. Do it for a month and see how things are in the bedroom. I'm telling you this, bro. Because I've counseled a lot of brothers and I coached a lot of brothers with a lot of these things specifically. One of the best times a couple has is when he finally returns from a work trip.
Wow.
And after they spend weeks together, it kind of stables out, bro. It gets a little pale.
So the absence makes the heart grow fonder.
Absolutely. Give her the gift of missing you. There's no greater gift a man can give his woman than missing. And you should be living a life where there's going to be pattern interruptions anyway. So it's like she doesn't know, and it's always like she's on her toes, bro.
Sure.
You should be not doing it for the sake of like some R-pill clown. Not like texting her back later, and meanwhile you're just on your phone all the time doing nothing else. Like, oh no, it's been 4 hours, 5 hours, and you're still thinking about her. You do other stuff. Like you should genuinely be living that life that you want to live, inshallah, for the sake of Allah. And these things like women become kind of secondary. It's like we mentioned in that womanism episode a few episodes ago for the sisters, right? We didn't tell them what to think, like every other podcast, bro. We told them how to think. And if you tell a woman how to think, she'll already know the right answer. Many times they don't want to be told what to do. 100%. They want to be told how to think. And that's way more powerful as a man than you simply just telling her, do this, do that. Most of the time, bro, she knows what to do. Most of the time, she knows exactly what to do. She knows what's what. She knows what is halal, what is haram. She knows about the baby hairs. Bro, women are not stupid. I would even beg to differ and argue that women are a little bit more socially intelligent than us. They're a little bit more socially aware than us.
Yeah.
So when you walk into a room and there's like some evil energy or some bad vibe, like usually women will spot that out right away. Men are a little bit ignorant and clueless about these things.
Yeah.
SubhanAllah. So understand your weaknesses, understand your strengths too. As a man, the best thing that you can do to kind of water a wilting flower is to just leave it. How many women complain about perfectionist boyfriends or husbands? Obviously for the kuffar, for the boyfriends, right? Oh, he's too perfect. He's too right.
Yeah, you hear about that.
They don't like that, bro. They might. I know society will tell you they want Mr. Right. A lot of times they don't, bro. They want Mr. Right if he's that guy.
They want
If you're
Mr.
not-
Wrong to be right.
Yeah, exactly. They want Mr. Wrong to be right. They don't want Mr. Right. Especially if you're Mr. Right and you're not that guy, then they're gonna call HR on you. There was a study done too that women are more likely to report to HR to less physically attractive coworkers.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're more physically attractive, a lot of them let them get away with many advances. Astaghfirullah.
Yeah, of course.
But this is reality, bro.
That is reality. That's crazy. And you know, one more thing I wanted to add to this whole kind of polygyny conversation is, if you've already had, I think again, you know what, Ali Dawah really went on a hard push with this whole polygyny thing for a while, and I think this is one of the other things he says, which I think is facts as well. He was like, if you're already struggling with corn and struggling with lowering your gaze, and you're struggling with that part of life as a young man or as a man, as married, before marriage, if this is a problem for you, getting multiple wives is not going to solve that problem for you, you know? So that's another thing that needs to be taken into account for men as well. And I was going to say, it sounds glamorous to have multiple wives, right? But if you have a problem with these things, it's never going to solve it, right? And having multiple wives is a tall order. It's not a simple thing. It's not straightforward.
It's exhausting, bro.
Brother, even Sheikh
It's
Asim.
exhausting.
Even Sheikh Asim has said it. He said, "Do you think that having wives is like a game? It's like, oh, well, this is gonna be really great and loads of fun, mate." I don't know if anyone's ever been married before. It's not such a simple thing, and now you're just trying to juggle two.
I think Allah Mabarak has like
situations.
2 or 3 wives, you know, and he was like, it's exhausting.
Yeah,
bro.
even he said it's
exhausting.
easy.
Like imagine how much effort it takes, bro, to like just game your wife, raise up your wife, seduce your wife.
Yeah.
Be that guy in and out of the bedroom. Work hard.
Patience,
Work
having
hard,
patience
bro.
with your
making
wife's
all this
mood
money,
swings, yeah.
taking care of her, taking care of the family. Now you're gonna add in a whole other household. Now you're gonna add in 4 of those, bro. Are you kidding me? The average man isn't even equipped to handle 1 wife, let alone 4
facts.
wives. It's so easy to talk about my right, but you're semi-fulfilling her rights, and you want to do that to 3 other women, bro? Are you crazy? Do you just hate women? What's going on here? Because if you really loved women, you'd want to do your missus a service.
Yeah.
You'd water your garden. You'd put in all the effort into your wife, right? Have that body that you had in the can night, if not better. Have more money. Level up more as a man. Become more high value.
Yeah.
And increase her attraction towards you.
Yeah.
Instead of just simply getting another wife to keep your first wife attracted to you or in line.
100%, bro.
You gotta leave him with some gem, bro. You always drop like a proper, like just golden nugget at the end of the pod. Just one thing, bro. And please say it in your American accent.
What do I always say? What do Americans always say? No, you good. You good.
Yeah. I always say that.
You're kicking it with Fad, or you're gonna hear, "Oh, sorry, mate. You good? No, you good." No, I think I'm good, man. I think the first. Oh, this is what I was gonna say. What I've seen so far in real life, okay, from brothers who have gone and got second wives, and again, this is an anecdotal experience, personal experience, from what I've seen from others. They're actually not treating the first wife right to begin with. They're actually not fulfilling all her rights properly. They're trying to find, it's kind of a cop-out just to try and have fun, as opposed to doing it the right way. And really fulfilling her rights and taking on the responsibility of another woman and fulfilling the rights of that second woman and doing things properly. So that's another thing I just wanted to mention, because I think that, like I said, sisters are frustrated. We're not here to divide. We're here to bring together. With the sister side, the first way to connect with sisters, in my opinion, is to empathize and to understand the frustrations and their struggles. And that's another thing that I think is happening that I want to empathize with them for. So listen, we've given a lot of reasons why polygyny is good, why it's important, but we've also understood the side of the sisters that there's a lot of injustice happening when it's used. It's not used necessarily as a tool for good in the ways that it could be used. And it's kind of considered like a game when it's not a game. So just wanted to throw that out there and understand that, yeah, listen, we empathize massively with the sisters whose rights aren't being fulfilled. And I think that's a bigger problem. That's probably a bigger conversation to have which is sisters' rights not being fulfilled, men not being the
How to be a good husband.
how to be a good husband, men not being the providers of the homes, things like that. That's probably a bigger conversation to be had as opposed to polygyny, but that will probably be in another episode.
Boom. With this being said, boys and girls, smash that like button, comment down below your thoughts, let us know what you think about the pod so far, inshallah. And with this being said, may Allah bless you all, preserve us and our marriages, and as Brother Danish said over here, allow us to fulfill the rights of our women before even considering plurality. Allahumma ameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.